aggressively marketed and poorly understood. Number 3 on this list has been sold to millions of home cooks as a professional-grade solution. Serious knife communities have been quietly calling it one of the fastest ways to destroy a good blade for years. And number 1 is the kind of product that gets sold through late-night advertising and Facebook targeting, specifically because the people most likely to buy it are the people least likely to know what a properly sharpened knife actually feels like. Before we start, hit subscribe, because what you are about to learn changes the way you shop forever. Let's count them down. Number 5. Tumbler Rolling Knife Sharpener. Let's start with one that is not the worst idea in the world, because intellectual honesty matters here. The rolling sharpener concept is actually sound, because keeping the angle consistent during sharpening is one of the hardest things for beginners to master on traditional whetstones. And a rolling system that does that job mechanically is a legitimate solution to a real problem. The tumbler, however, is a sound concept executed with frustrating compromises at a price point that does not justify them. The magnetic base, which is supposed to hold the sharpening stone steady while you roll your blade across it, is too small for longer knives. A chef's knife of 8 inches or more, the most common knife in home kitchens, and often the one you most need to sharpen, has a heel-to-tip distance. The tumbler's base struggles to accommodate cleanly. Users report blade flex during sharpening, which is exactly what you do not want, because flex means an inconsistent angle. And an inconsistent angle means an uneven edge that will underperform and wear unevenly. Reviews also flag a pacing problem. You have to move slowly and deliberately to ensure the entire edge makes consistent contact with the sharpening surface. Move too quickly, which is what most people instinctively do, and you miss sections of the edge entirely. That means you finish the process thinking you have sharpened your knife, when you have actually only sharpened parts of it. At the price point the tumbler occupies, you are within reach of the WorkSharp Precision Adjust, which I will get to shortly, and which solves these problems with better engineering. The tumbler asks you to pay a premium price for a product that requires you to compensate for its limitations. That is not a trade worth making. Number 4. Bavarian Edge Knife Sharpener. The Bavarian Edge is a masterclass in the gap between marketing and reality, and it is worth spending some time on because it reveals something important about how this entire product category works. If you have spent any time on social media or late-night television in the past several years, you have almost certainly seen the Bavarian Edge advertisement. The spring-loaded V-shaped design, the before and after demonstrations, the tomatoes sliced with unsettling ease, the price point that feels like a bargain for something that looks so purposeful and well-designed. The Bavarian Edge is an extremely well-marketed product. It is a much less impressive sharpening product. The core problem is mechanical. The spring-loaded design applies pressure to both sides of the blade simultaneously as you draw it through, which sounds efficient, but creates an inconsistent sharpening angle depending on the width and thickness of the blade you're working with. Different knives have different blade geometries, and a fixed spring tension cannot account for those differences. What you get is an edge that has been abraded rather than properly sharpened. Technically sharper than before in the way that any abrasion creates some sharpness, but not the clean, consistent, well-angled edge that a properly sharpened knife should have. Amazing. Ribs, one of the most rigorous product testing sites in the cooking space, has categorized the Bavarian Edge as primarily a honing tool rather than a true sharpener, something that realigns an edge that is already in reasonable condition but cannot meaningfully restore a genuinely dull knife. For the person watching that advertisement whose knives haven't been properly sharpened in 2 years, the Bavarian Edge is not the solution the advertisement implies. It is a product that works best on knives that didn't really need it, and falls short precisely when it is needed most. The advertising budget behind this product is enormous. The sharpening results are not. Number 3. AnySharp Classic and AnySharp Pro. The AnySharp sits in a category that I want to describe precisely because precision matters here. It is a product that does exactly what it says, and what it says should concern you if you own knives you actually care about. AnySharp uses tungsten carbide sharpening elements, 2 hardened carbide rods or plates set at a fixed angle that the blade is drawn through. Tungsten carbide is extremely hard, harder than the steel in almost any kitchen knife, which means every single pass through an AnySharp removes metal from your blade. Not a trivial amount, a meaningful amount. The brand's own Amazon listing, in a moment of remarkable transparency, describes the product as one that quickly removes excess metal on a fully blunt knife. Read that again. Quickly removes excess metal. That is not sharpening in any meaningful sense of the word. That is aggressive abrasion that creates a temporary edge by stripping material from your blade. The edge it produces is not a refined, properly angled cutting surface. It is a rough, burred, quickly degrading approximation of sharpness that will dull faster than a properly sharpened edge because the metal structure underneath it has been compromised. For a cheap knife that you use to open packages and cut twine and don't particularly care about, fine. For a knife you bought because you care about cooking, because you invested real money in a blade that will last decades if properly maintained, the AnySharp is quietly destroying it one pass at a time. The warning and even the positive coverage, "Don't over-sharpen because the carbide blades remove metal with each use," is telling you something important. A sharpener that comes with a warning about using it too much is not a sharpening tool. It is an abrasion tool with a sharpening tools marketing budget. Number 2. AccuSharp Knife and Tool Sharpener. The AccuSharp is perhaps the purest example of a product that technically works and is nonetheless a bad idea for anyone who owns kitchen knives worth maintaining. It is a pull-through sharpener with tungsten carbide elements set at a fixed angle, designed to be held against the countertop while the knife is drawn through it. It will make a dull knife cut again. That is true. If your knife cannot cut a tomato skin and you pull it through an AccuSharp 3 times, it will be able to cut a tomato skin again. By that narrow metric, it functions. The knife community's criticism of pull-through sharpeners of this type is consistent and well-founded. They remove significantly more metal than necessary to achieve the edge. They produce a wide, weak, coarsely abraded bevel rather than a refined cutting edge, and the edge they create degrades quickly because it lacks the structural integrity of a properly sharpened blade. You are not building an edge with an AccuSharp. You are destroying the existing edge and leaving behind something cruder in its place that will need to be destroyed again in a few weeks. Over years of use on a knife you care about, this cycle is genuinely damaging. A good chef's knife, maintained properly on a whetstone or a quality-guided sharpening system, can last decades with minimal metal loss per sharpening session. The same knife maintained exclusively on a pull-through tungsten carbide sharpener will have a visibly narrower blade within a few years as the repeated aggressive abrasion removes material that cannot be replaced. You are not maintaining your knife. You are slowly consuming it. For a battered utility knife, a camping knife, a cheap serrated bread knife, the AccuSharp is fine. For anything you actually invested in, it is the wrong tool. Number 1. Priority Chef 2-Stage Knife Sharpener. The Priority Chef earns the top spot on this list, not because it is the worst sharpener available. It is not. But because it occupies the most dangerous position in the market. It is the beginner trap that looks like a responsible, mid-range purchase and is trusted precisely because it does not look like obvious clickbait. The Bavarian Edge looks like an infomercial product. Most people approach it with at least some skepticism. The Priority Chef looks like a considered, sensible kitchen tool. It has a 2-stage design, coarse and fine. which suggests a thoughtful sharpening process. It is popular. It has thousands of reviews. It appears on gift guides. It is the kind of thing a well-meaning family member buys you for Christmas because it looks professional without being intimidating. The course stage uses tungsten carbide. A hands-on review that actually examined the blade after use noted something alarming. The course stage appeared to shave the edge off the knife and left small chips in the blade, not a refined, properly established bevel. Actual chips, metal removed in fragments rather than in controlled, consistent abrasion. Chipping is a serious problem. A chipped edge is a structurally compromised edge. It is weaker at the points of damage. It will propagate, meaning the chips tend to grow rather than self-correct with subsequent sharpening, and restoring a chipped blade properly requires removing enough metal to get below the damage, which on a cheap pull-through sharpener you simply cannot control. The Priority Chef is popular because beginner cooks are the largest segment of the market, and beginner cooks do not yet have the reference point to know what a properly sharpened knife should feel like. It works well enough that they do not immediately know something is wrong. It is priced just high enough to feel like a quality purchase. And it sits in the exact space where better options, genuinely better options at comparable prices, now exist and are not getting the visibility they deserve. Now let's get to the ones that are actually worth buying. Number 3, Horel 3 and Horel 3 Cruise. Horel is a German company that took the rolling sharpener concept, the same concept the tumbler attempts and compromises, and engineered it properly. The result is one of the most satisfying sharpening experiences available to a home cook who does not want to learn freehand technique. The Horel 3, reviewed by the Wall Street Journal Buy-Side in 2026 testing, improves meaningfully on the previous generation, with faster metal removal, easier disc swapping between different grit levels, and stronger overall sharpening performance, while maintaining the magnetic angle guide that is Horel's signature feature. The magnetic guide holds the blade at the correct angle as you roll the sharpening disc along the edge. And that solves the fundamental problem of consistent angle that makes freehand sharpening difficult for beginners. The Horel 3 Cruise is the slightly more accessible entry point, with the same core mechanics, a slightly reduced feature set, and a lower price. For most home cooks who want a rolling sharpener, the Cruise is the honest recommendation. For people who want the full system and are willing to pay for the best version, the Horel 3 justifies every penny of its premium. What Horel does better than anything else on the market is make the process feel considered and deliberate rather than rushed and uncertain. The design is beautiful. The mechanics are sound. The results are consistent. It is the rolling sharpener for people who actually care about their knives and want a tool that reflects that. Number 2, Chef's Choice Trizor 15 Edge Select. If you want an electric sharpener, and there are genuinely good reasons to want one, particularly if you have multiple knives that need attention, or you simply want the fastest path to a sharp edge with minimal technique required, the Chef's Choice Trizor 15 is the one that repeatedly survives rigorous testing and earns its recommendations. Food & Wine's electric sharpener testing named it a top pick. Multiple 2026 reviews across serious kitchen publications place it at or near the top of the electric category. The reason is consistent. It does what electric sharpeners promise to do, which most of them fail at, and that is, produce a genuinely sharp, properly beveled edge without destroying the blade in the process. The Trizor 15 has a specific capability worth understanding. It can convert European-style knives, which typically come from the factory at a 20-degree edge angle, to a 15-degree edge, the sharper geometry used by most Japanese knives. This is not a trivial feature. A 15-degree edge is measurably sharper for slicing tasks, and the ability to reprofile a blade to that geometry without manual stones is something most home cooks have simply never had access to before. It is not cheap. For the price, you could buy a very good set of whetstones and with practice, produce superior results manually. But for the home cook who wants consistent, reliable sharpness with a machine that handles the technique for them, the Chef's Choice Trizor 15 is the honest answer.